Olson.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Can't get enough baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
There's no human being I'd rather be talking to right now than Tim Hyers.
Thanks, big guy.
Because, man, Tim, I am fascinated by the way that hitting is going in baseball. I had on Scott Hatterberg of the A's. I don't want to call him the Oakland A's, of the A's. And we were talking about scouting Jacob Wilson. Jacob Wilson is the next Luis Ariz. And we look at bat speed, and we say, okay, well, the slowest bat speeds are Luis Ariz and guys like Jacob Wilson. Yet, everyone's really prioritizing bat speed, and I think more than anything else. But you do, in my mind, you kind of need these other guys. I'm putting too many words in your mouth right out of the gate. But I just want to get your take on where things are going, because is it too much of an all or nothing game now, or where is it going, especially considering the last couple of years?
I think it's started to lean that way. And I think, not that it was boring, but there was kind of the all or nothing, the homer and a lot of strikeouts. Strikeouts went out the roof. So, the guys like Jacob Wilson and coming into the game and putting the ball in play and being consistent day in and day out, I think this is what the game needs, and I think that's what the fans like. They like homers. I think that's a mixture, but I always say it's you need a mixture in this game. You need the power, but you also need those guys that can get on base, that can cause havoc and put pressure on pitchers. And so I like that part of the game. But I understand that, the long ball, brings fans in, and we need that part of it.
But it also brings fans in winning. And another guy we had on last week, Mike Lowell was talking about, well, it's funny how when you get to the World Series, everybody all of a sudden obsesses over putting the ball in play. And you've been in the World Series. You understand. And so can you talk about, is this something we forget? We want the instant gratification. Yeah. But when the rubber meets the road, you've been in those games.
Yes.
You must want to put the ball in play, right?
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
I always say the first part of the season, it's kind of, a lot of hitters want to get their numbers and, find themselves, and that's where, they feel good about themselves and, drive the baseball. But as you get closer to the playoffs and definitely in the playoffs, those competitive at-bats, putting the ball in play hard, working pitchers, you have to have it to win. It can't be all or nothing. And, as and this city knows, it's, it's kind of that next man up mentality and fighting pitchers, because obviously pitchers are tough in the playoffs. And you've got to control the strike zone, and you've got to have bat control and timing.
As you go through this, like we said the last couple of years, going through it, guys are being brought up a different way too. I mean, consider how many years have you now been a major league hitting coach? I mean, a while.
Yeah, 10 or 11.
Right, 10 or 11. So I go back 10 or 11 years. Where were these people who are coming up? They were, in high school. They were at AAU. They were being taught a certain way. They were being introduced a certain way. Have you noticed that as you've gotten these guys?
Yes. They are being rushed, and just the little details. Are being missed, and I think at the major league level now, you do a lot more developing than you did, 10 years ago. I just remember being around the Chase Utleys of the world and guys like that, and just how they saw the game day in and day out, and the things they picked up on from first at bat to their last at bat, is special. And, I think that's where it takes time up here. A young guy gets rushed up here, he doesn't have the same experience, and, that's our job to help identify those and help teach him. But, experience really is a big deal, and it matters, and there's little finer details.
How do you handle that when you have a guy who's called up? We obsess over top prospects. They get called up, and maybe they have success, and then a month into it, all of a sudden they're being picked apart because there's more information, analytics, and everything else. for you, like, how do you handle that? Because you don't want to put too much stuff in your head. You don't want to have them have self-doubt, all of that. But how do you handle something? Because you've probably been through that a few times, right?
Every year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every single year. First of all, you got to get to know the player and what he can handle, and how he digests, will digest information. So you got to identify that first. And then part of it is, he got to the big leagues for a reason. He has a skill set, so you can't get too far away from that skill set. I'm trying to help to develop him. But also, you got to push the limit a little. You got to push them, and because they get in that comfort mode, and they're trying to. Young players is just a lot of times survive in the big leagues. So it's just waves of, first year their eyes are big, and everything's exciting. They're just trying to survive, and then things settle in, and those ups and downs start, and you're trying to be there for them, but you're trying to help them. Understand, stick with your strengths, but also you've got to grow in this game. This game is always changing, and pitchers are changing, and you've got to stay. You just can't go up there and let me just see ball, hit ball. You have to pay attention to what guys are doing to you, how they're pitching you in those battles each night. And I always say, though, you cannot get away from that competitive edge, though. You know what I'm saying? It's a battle every night, no matter if you're getting beat up or if you feel really good about yourself. You can't get away from that. And that competitive, me versus the pitcher in the batter's box is something I try to preach. But, guys want to get so much information, they get away from themselves, and they're thinking about swings, mechanics, and all this information, and they forget that it's a competition.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of the hitters are in their lane and kind of in their zone, is when they get back to competing, because that's probably what got them here, is talent and competing and that one-on-one battle.
But also, a lot of them haven't experienced failure either.
Oh, right? That's a big part of it. You're there for them.
Yeah, but think about it. That's such an important thing. The example we always give is, Mike Trout gets sent back down. If Mike Trout can get sent back down, you can get sent back down.
Yeah.
But they haven't been through failure, right?
No. Veterans, they understand that, yes, there's going to be those times when pitchers just hand it to you and it's just not going your way. But they keep working, they keep battling, and they don't get too far away from themselves, and changing swings dramatically or changing mindsets. They're in the fight. They know that, it is a difficult time, and, keep battling and things will turn around. But that's really hard for a young player.
Oh.
And that's a part of the journey. That's that, I call it like that sophomore slump.
Yeah.
And it's because, you are going to hit bad times up here. It's just part of life. It's a part of this game. But how do you handle it? Yeah. And that's where, for me, just being around so many players, is just sharing stories of, this player and this player, they did struggle. But don't get too far away from yourself, and you got to keep battling. Doesn't mean you don't make small changes.
Yeah.
But get in there and kind of find your honey hole, find what makes you tick and what your groove is, but never forget how to compete.
And then there's, like you said, when you get here, they'll find your weakness or the perceived weakness, right? There's examples, Dever's seen 50 straight fastballs, right? Sure. And then you're saying, I've hit a fastball before, and that's just one example. But
one example.
Right. And so, you say that you have to convince them, say, listen, they're going to keep doing this.
Yes, that's one thing that has changed in this game is, obviously there's an army of guys on opposing teams trying to figure out how to get you out. That's just what it is. And then, pitchers have to, do their thing. But when they do find a weakness in a part where you're struggling, it's like they go for the jugular. They just go for it. They just don't, they're relentless with it. And I won't say it's a copycat league, but it's kind of the next series, you're probably going to see those same sequences again. And I just try to tell hitters is you don't need to be great at your weakness, but you need to find a way to survive and survive and show them that, hey, I can get some, maybe some damage or get some hits out of that or put a good swing on those types of pitches so I can get back to my strength. And a lot of times young players focus so much on their weakness and, hey, they're throwing the high fastball to me, and they change who they are as a whole player because of that one weakness. And that's where experience comes in.
Yeah.
It's yes, they are going to attack that, but can I survive a little bit, be disciplined up there, or cheat to it for a few times to get the ball down where that's my strength.
Let's talk about you. You switched organizations before. How has this been different for you, or has it been different?
I think every team every year is different.
Yeah.
It really is. But yes, it's kind of the third, fourth time I've come into a new team. You know, I feel like I made a lot of mistakes over the years, but I feel like I've learned a lot of things that I shouldn't do. And now it's you've got to know the players and get to know them and how they react, because batting practice and off-season workouts is one player, but when they get to the heat of the battle, you got to get to know how they react in those competitions. And they start chasing breaking balls in the ground. How do you help the player? How does he react to late inning relievers? How does he handle lefties? How does he handle righties? And so you can be there for them and see those reactions, because I think that's the most important thing, because we can assume a lot of things. You see them from a distance, but once you get to know them, I think in seeing how they react, see how they work, that's the first and foremost, and that's what I feel like right now. I told somebody the other day, it's like building a brand new business from scratch, and the only reason is you're getting to know your people, and you're getting to know the guys, and that's where we're at right now.
And the thing is, Tim, is that you go in, I'm going to relate this back to my stupid self, but like coaching high school basketball, every season you go in, I think that I know the players, I think this will work, and you'll always end up, no, it wasn't like that, and like you do your best to get to know them in the off season. You do your best to study them, everything else. How much more do you know them now than say 2 months ago?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 years of doing this, and I can tell you that is the perfect example of what you just said. Is you think you know all this, you think because stats tell you and numbers and what you see on TV or what you hear about people. But it's the behind-the-scenes fights, behind-the-scene conversations. And yes, we're getting better at it, but I think the first month is always that the newness, and I think we're at a point now, and I'm with this team, that I kind of figured a lot of guys out and understand, and I have that trust that they can talk to me about certain things and ask certain questions, and I get to know them and they get to know me. So yeah, it's every team's different, and every season's different. When you're going well, things aren't going as good for you, or that swing's just working just right, or you're struggling seeing the ball. I think that's the reason everything's different.
Who is an example with this team that you're like, I really get to know him, I came to appreciate like his process and really sort of the evolution of knowing him?
Yeah, I think Austin Riley's a guy. It's his ups and downs sometimes in the batter's box, but it's so funny is he can turn that off and go play incredible defense at third base. Matt Olson, no matter the ups and downs, and he ran into some terrible luck the first 3 weeks of the season. I mean, I think he got robbed of 2 homers the first week of the season, but it was funny as his ability to go in there and work and kind of clear the emotion, because he's a veteran, he's been there, go work, be honest with himself. And it's been truly, 2 class acts. But it's funny how the emotional part is, it gets to them, but they're able to cut it, come in the next day, and you can't tell. They're just men at work, and you know what? They got a job to do, and they're going to go out there and compete and give it their best, best effort.
The last thing is just, it must feel good. We always look at May. May's a weird month because it's not like teams are making trades. It's not like, you're turning stuff over all the time, but you're sort of figuring out who you are, and you feel good about yourself or you don't. And for you guys, it must feel good that you sort of gotten through the early season, and now it's like, okay, all right, we're figuring out who we are. We're getting guys back. Here we go. Tough division, but that's okay.
Yeah, that first week we were not running all cylinders. But kind of give credit to the Padres and the Dodgers. We ran into them full cylinder, had a healthy pitching staff, and they kind of put it to us. And it was they won the battles. Kind of nothing went right for us, and we were not playing very well. But I think we learned a lot about ourselves, and I think we'll benefit from that. Here in the next couple of months, because when you do go through those trials and go through those difficult times, I think that's this group right here. They'll dig deep and take that experience and be better for it.
All right, World Series number 3. Here we go. Let's go. All right, thanks, Rick.
Thank you.